At its core, the app allows users to track and share the real-time locations of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents. The concept is simple. Community members log sightings of ICE activity, and those updates appear on a map. But the political reaction has been anything but simple. After CNN aired a report describing how the app works, key figures from former President Donald Trump's inner circle lashed out. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi, Immigration Advisor Tom Homan, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Trump himself all condemned the app, along with CNN for giving it airtime. Some accused the network of endangering federal agents. Others suggested criminal investigations might be warranted against both the app's creator and the journalists covering it. So what exactly is ICEBlock? Why is it drawing so much attention and so much outrage? And at the end of the day, is any of this actually illegal? Let's break it all down. ICEBlock is a publicly available mobile application designed for real-time crowdsourced reporting. Its core function is to allow users to anonymously log and view recent sightings of ICE agents in public spaces. When a user spots ICE activity, they can tag the approximate location within a 5-mile radius, note the number of agents, describe any visible vehicles, and include extra details, like whether agents were on foot or in marked SUVs. All reports are shared through an interactive map that updates continuously, providing alerts to others in the area. According to the app's developer, the mission behind ICEBlock is community awareness. The goal is to keep families informed of potential immigration enforcement actions nearby, especially in cities and neighborhoods with large undocumented populations. It's meant to act as an early warning system, similar in concept to apps that alert drivers about speed traps or DUI checkpoints. Following CNN's coverage, the app's popularity spiked. Tens of thousands of downloads were recorded within a matter of days, particularly in metro areas where ICE activity has historically been more visible. CNN reported on the app as part of a broader segment on how digital tools are shaping public response to immigration enforcement. The network emphasized that ICEBlock is legal, free to download, and available to anyone. They made it clear that they weren't endorsing the app, just explaining how it worked and why it was gaining traction. But despite the neutral tone of the report, the backlash from political figures was immediate and intense. The reaction from Trump-affiliated officials was swift, unmistakably intense. Within hours of CNN's coverage, former Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared on conservative media, calling the app reckless and potentially criminal. She announced that her team was actively reviewing legal options and even issued a personal warning to the app's creator, saying he better watch out. Bondi argued that by enabling the public to track ICE agents in near real time, the app could expose officers to targeted harassment or interfere with their duties. She also accused CNN of crossing a legal boundary, not just ethically, but potentially criminally, by choosing to report on the app without condemning it. Tom Homan, the former acting director of ICE and now Trump's lead immigration advisor, doubled down. He framed the app as a threat to national security and demanded a full investigation by the Department of Justice. According to Homan, the app doesn't just show ICE activity, it effectively forecasts enforcement operations, which could be exploited to help undocumented individuals evade capture. He warned that this kind of tool undermines law and order and puts federal agents at serious risk. Then came Kristi Noem, Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security. She took the rhetoric up another notch by suggesting that CNN's report could qualify as obstruction of justice. While she didn't cite any specific statute, Noem implied that the network's decision to showcase the app could be interpreted as an attempt to aid people in avoiding lawful detention. She even floated the possibility of criminal charges, not just against the app's developer, but potentially against CNN journalists themselves. And finally, Donald Trump himself weighed in, using familiar language. He called CNN's report illegal, aiding criminals, and said prosecution was actively being discussed. In one speech, he linked the ICEBlock controversy to broader accusations that CNN was working against American interests, comparing it to what he's called treasonous coverage of foreign policy. Collectively, these statements framed the app not just as controversial, but as dangerous. They suggested a coordinated effort to label ICEBlock as an operational threat and CNN as complicit in undermining law enforcement. But despite all the outrage, one thing was notably absent: a clear legal basis. None of the officials, Bondi, Homan, Noem, or Trump, identified a specific law that the app or CNN had violated. This raised the question, was this really about legality, or was it about optics and political messaging? Amid the storm of criticism, CNN issued a formal response, defending both the substance of their reporting and their right to do it. Their position was straightforward. First, ICEBlock is a legal, publicly accessible app available through mainstream platforms like the App Store and Google Play. Second, CNN's segment simply described what the app does, who made it, and why it was gaining attention, without endorsing its use. The network clarified that it never encouraged viewers to download or use the app. Instead, it framed the coverage as part of a broader look at how citizen-driven technology is changing the way communities respond to law enforcement. From apps that track police checkpoints to public crime maps, this kind of reporting is not new and is typically protected under the First Amendment. CNN also emphasized that freedom of the press is not contingent on how popular or controversial a story is. The legal threats from Bondi, Homan, and Noem were described as chilling by press advocates, who warned that prosecuting journalists for factual reporting could erode the foundations of a free media. This sparked a broader debate in journalistic and legal circles. Where do we draw the line between responsible journalism and reporting that might unintentionally influence real-world outcomes? Is it the media's responsibility to consider how a story could be used, especially in politically sensitive areas like immigration enforcement? CNN's response underscored a key principle: journalists report the facts. What people do with that information, unless directly incited by the media, is outside the journalist's control. But in an era of hyper-partisan politics and increasing pressure on the press, that principle is being tested, loudly and publicly. So let's break down the legal side. Are the threats of prosecution actually valid? The first argument is obstruction of justice. For that to hold up, prosecutors would need to prove the app was created or promoted specifically to interfere with law enforcement operations. So far, there's no public evidence that this was the intent. Next is privacy. ICE agents operate in public spaces and are public officials. There's no legal expectation of privacy while performing public duties in public areas. Then there's the issue of incitement. For CNN or the app developer to be guilty of incitement, they would need to encourage users to engage in illegal behavior. Again, nothing in the app's functionality or CNN's reporting suggests that. Finally, there's the First Amendment. Both the app's existence and CNN's reporting are likely protected under free speech and freedom of the press. The legal consensus is clear. This is a tough case to prosecute, if it even gets that far. This controversy raises bigger questions that go beyond a single app. It's about the tension between national security and civil liberties, between the public's right to know and the government's need to enforce laws. On one side, there's concern that apps like ICEBlock could disrupt operations or put agents at risk. On the other, there's a growing push for transparency and community defense against what some see as overreach. The political reaction here may not just be about legality. It could also be about optics, showing strength on immigration, taking on so-called liberal media, and rallying a political base. But the legal threats themselves are serious. If the government begins prosecuting journalists or tech creators over public tools, it could open the door to censorship. What's considered helpful today could be deemed dangerous tomorrow, depending on who's in power. So why is the Trump team furious over an ICE tracking app? Partly because it challenges their immigration agenda, partly because it raises uncomfortable questions about accountability and transparency, and partly because it's a perfect culture war flashpoint. Tech, immigration, and media all rolled into one. But when you strip away the rhetoric, the legal case remains unclear. Unless prosecutors can prove actual harm or criminal intent, these threats are more political than practical. In the end, this story is about more than just one app. It's about who controls information and what happens when technology, politics, and public trust collide.